The addictive properties of wheat.
Yeah.
Is that why it's so darn hard to get off of it? I remember working with clients, it's like, I gotta give up wheat, I gotta get off of grains and gluten. Like it was a big deal to them, like they really hold on to it. Totally. Talk more about the addictive properties of this.
The amazing thing about the agrarian transition was the theory that, well, why would anyone sit down and start gathering up the little seeds of these grasses? Like what was the motivation? And the idea, this was put forth by some Australian biologists, was that it's the intrinsically narcotic properties of the...
I had that in my notes, so I was just going to say that. You used that word narcotic when I read your article.
Highly narcotic, yeah, narcotic, because of these things called gluten exorphins, which basically interact with the opioid receptors in the brain, which is not uncommon. You know, fructose is the same type of chemical, really, in terms of like alcohol, metabolized along the same pathways, induces the same hedonic responses. So much of what we eat in the West is truly just drugs. We're just all self-medicating. But with wheat, what happens is that it motivates us to continue to go through that cycle. I mean, there's an endocrine cycle. No, I like to call it a neuroendocrine sort of roller coaster. Because you know, you have the blood sugar elevation, then the insulin is released, and then you get a crash, and your brain can go like 3 minutes without freaking out if it doesn't have adequate glucose, unless it's using ketones and, you know, basically byproducts of saturated fat to keep itself running optimally. So, but these peptides have been shown to basically be very similar to morphine, and they cause us to crave and love bread. It's to die for. And there's even just this sensorial aspect to like the smell of bread, and like it's so imprinted in us that we don't even think about it anymore. It's only when you remove it suddenly that you almost can go through a heroin-like withdrawal. You don't foam at the mouth, but you certainly can feel a little crazy.
And people go through that and they feel like, well, I feel like this because I need wheat. I need my gluten in order to feel good. That's a trip.
That is a trip, right? To identify it as a biological need, because we do outsource some of the neurological, you know, capabilities to things like coffee when I wake up in the morning. That's like part of my brain that I sometimes feel I need for my brain to function, because it's, you know, inducing dopamine and all these catecholamines. But the same with wheat, and it's well established now. Dr. Tom O'Brien actually pointed this out in a great video of his, that research shows that gluten will cut off blood flow to the cortex, you know, the higher faculties of our brain. So even just on a physiological level, we can see how it adversely affects neurological health. You know, one of the interesting things that I wrote about in my essay, The Dark Side of Wheat, was that in the Roman Empire, which was known as the Wheat Empire, they used a form of biological imperialism, because what they would do to expand their dominance in the ancient world is they would convert, you know, folks that were still living more of a, quote, paleo type of life to their wheat economy, and force them to be part of this massive system. And what happened is, you know, the Irish, the Finns, some Germanic tribes, very resistant to being part of that, you know. Think of Braveheart. And they still have some of the highest incidence of celiac disease, because they didn't go through the genetic die-offs and bottlenecks that occurred by being forced into the wheat-based diet and economy. And so the addictive properties, though, are fundamentally what I think enabled them to establish this kind of dominance.